Today we've got a special guest, someone who's about to play a massive role in shaping the future of Chelmsford City Football Club, our new manager, Angelo Harrop. He joins me today to talk about his journey, his vision for the club and what it really takes to build a winning team. Angelo has already made his mark in football management, bringing success and a strong tactical philosophy to his previous clubs. Now he's taking the reins at Chelmsford City and the fans are eager to see what's next. Welcome, Angelo. Good to meet you. Thanks for coming in today. Tell us what inspired you to get into football management in the first place.
Well, I was, brought up in a football family. My dad was a professional footballer, and I pretty much went everywhere that he went. So I heard a lot of, different team talks and speaking to parents and also obviously the children, because he was basically the director of youth at Chelmsford United. So I lived and breathed football, and after a career of playing and playing abroad and also in a sort of the non-league circuit, always wanted to go into management. It was sort of in my blood.
Yeah.
And I had quite a good bit of success quite early at sort of a non-league club called Stanway Rovers.
Yeah.
Sort of my boyhood club. And ever since I had a little bit of success, really enjoyed it, working with the players and developing players, and the rest is history.
And you mentioned your dad being a big influence on you there.
Yeah.
Who else has played a part or been an influence in that management career? Is there anyone that you particularly look up to, even if you've worked with them or maybe not worked with them?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately for me, I've worked with some really good managers, and also obviously when my dad was, assistant and director of football, I was always around the dressing room just as a young boy, and players must have thought, who's this young kid always in the dressing room? And probably without me knowing, I was hearing lots of, really good information, sometimes bad information. But I look back, I had a guy called Adrian Webster. He was basically a bit like my uncle. He came everywhere with my dad. Sadly, he passed away a few years ago, but he was a big figure at Chelmsford United at the time. And he was like a second dad to me, really. My dad, he was very, very demanding.
Yeah.
And it was an often that he ever gave me credit for. I had a lot of success as a young kid. I went on trial at Manchester United for 6 weeks. I was sort of the next big thing at Chelmsford United at the age of 15. I'm small now, but I was a really small lad, but very technically gifted. And I went over to Wales with the international stuff. I've done a lot of stuff on my own, so I had to be strong-minded and have a lot of belief in myself, because obviously my dad was coaching as well. So everyone was like, oh, he's only here because of his dad. His dad's the manager. So it was really tough, and I had to go through a lot of things, and a lot of people were saying stuff about me at the time. But I stayed strong, and for me, it's given me a really good grounding.
Yeah.
And if my dad says to me, "You've done well," I know I've done bloody well. So it's great, and I feel like that's sort of taken into me. But going back to Adrian Webster, he spent so much time with me and sort of give me a lot of confidence and belief. Another big key figure was Phil Parkinson. So he came into Chelmsford United, and remember, I was there from 8 years of age, a club that I absolutely worshipped, watched every home game, was like a ball boy there as well. He came in when I was coming up to my 3rd year as a scholar. He only been at the club 6 weeks, and he gave me the bad news, which every young player dreads, that I wasn't going to make it. And all I knew was football.
Yeah. I
wasn't overly academic. Even in school, I was writing out my best England team when I should have been focusing on my maths. And I just lived and breathed football. That's all I ever knew. And he gave me the news that sadly we're going to be letting you go from Chelmsford United. And I always remember that conversation. But looking back now, I think it was obviously the right choice. And as every young player, and I look back now and I speak to these young players coming out of the pro game, it's really difficult, because you're in a bit of limbo land of what you're going to do. What are you going to do next? So, obviously went on trial at every club under the sun, and my dad was always there in terms of driving me all over the country. And I've worked with some really good managers. Lucky enough for me as well, as I've got good relationships around the non-league circuit. So like someone like Dean Brennan at Barnet, I can go in, I can see how they work. And for me, I'm not the end product, and I won't be the end product for Chelmsford. There's a lot of stuff that I need to learn, but I'm willing to change certain things. I'm not just like, this is the way I work and that's it. I'm always happy to develop and nick ideas off other managers, because for me the best coaches, managers are the best licensed thieves.
Yeah.
They nick good ideas off others.
You don't need to reinvent the wheel.
No,
Yeah,
no.
exactly. And that obviously gave you a lot of resilience going through all of those
Yep.
challenges. But it also, you know, we talk a lot about getting those 10,000 hours of purposeful practice makes you
Yep.
an expert, and just listening to other managers and hearing how they've done things, you know, you learn from that, and so it all plays a part in that learning. What would you say are the key lessons you've learned, either from other managers or whilst you've been a manager yourself?
Well, I've always been really confident. I was confident as a player. You know, I used to take penalties and set pieces. I was always really confident, and I've took that into my management. I feel like if you're telling players what, and you're trying to guide them of what you're wanting to do, you have to have a confidence about you, because they've got to believe in what you're trying to achieve. And for me, I've just tried to take that in my management. I've tried to think back at the good managers I've had. Always honesty, and that's really difficult, because you end up building a really good relationship with the players. You spend probably more time with the players than you do with your wife or your children. So I try and be honest with them. I try and always have tough chats, personally with them. I don't do it over the phone, and I think players really buy into that. The tough conversations ultimately, as a leader, as a manager, you have to have. And if you're scared or worried about that, I think you come unstuck, because football management, you have to make really big calls. And I'll probably say that's one of the biggest positives for me, I think, is that I'll make big calls or make big decisions, and I'll worry about it after. But at the time, I'm really set that this is the way I want to go, and I'm happy to change things if they're not working or if they are working.
Yeah, we've spoken about this, that transparency. That's how
Yeah.
I do everything. It's just have the conversation and
Yeah.
find the solution. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But it's a lot better to have that conversation and try and find the solution than neither knowing what the other one's thinking. And yeah, 100% agree with that.
I think, it's fortunate enough, I run my own business, so I try and take that into my football management. I always try and lead from the front, so no job's too big for me. I'll always be happy to, if we have food as a football team, clear up my own plate, just general stuff that, is probably simple to the fans and stuff, but I think players need to see that the manager's happy to do any job and work hard, and that will sort of go through our team.
Yeah. And talking about the team, what can the fans expect? What's your footballing philosophy? How would you describe the way that Angelo Harrop and his teams play football?
Yeah, my philosophy is slightly changing, but I'll always say that the number one factor is I'd like to think that my team is the hardest working team in the league. I think, I've been a football fan. You want your team to work harder than any other team, and I think over the years, I think a lot of people said that about my teams. Maybe it's that team spirit, but I think fans want to turn up and see every last blood and sweat out of each player. And you've only got to look at the top teams in the Premier League, your Liverpools, your Man Cities. Yes, they're technically outstanding, but they all work really hard. Another philosophy for me is just, go and excite fans. Have players that can win you games, and talking about formations and stuff like that, it will change with the players that we sign. So I can't say that I'm set in stone with this formation, because we might not be lucky enough to get the players that we want to get. That's the reality of non-league football. But I want, especially at home, it doesn't matter who we play at home, I'd like to see us front foot, really aggressive, and ultimately looking to score, lots of goals in front of our fans, because without the fans, we don't have a football club.
100%. And how do you get the best out of them? You talked there about the team spirit and stuff. How do you get the best out of the individuals? How do you get the best out of the team? What is it that builds that culture, that team spirit?
Well, this is a big thing that I've learned. It can't just come from myself. It's got to come from a really good backroom staff. My work. Yes, we've agreed it today, but my work will literally start straight away. Obviously, Robbie's done an amazing job here, but I'll be looking around now and seeing what works, what I think could be improved. And I just think team spirit is absolutely crucial. I look back at the success I had last season and even the year before that in terms of the playoffs. We had a fantastic team spirit, and that's something I'm really key on bringing to Chelmsford. I want players to die for the badge and leave everything out on the pitch. And I think if you get that, that real spirit, which is, by the way, really hard to get, had a conversation with my dad this morning about, sometimes I maybe took that for granted. Really hard to get. So we'll celebrate every win, not to rub it into anyone else's faces. It's more for us as a dressing room. I think it's really hard to win games in football, especially the level we play. So we'll enjoy every moment. And then, when we lose or we draw, we'll look at it and then we'll look to improve.
And what was it about the Chelmsford City role particularly that enticed you, that made you want to come to Chelmsford City?
Well, first of all, I'm a local lad. I live in Colchester, so I know the non-league scene really well and the local clubs. And I see the crowds that you guys bring, the passion that the football club has. Obviously, meeting yourself and the project and the vision of this club. And I always said after Braintree, the next club I go to, I've got to go to a club that's got the same ambitions as myself. Sometimes maybe I'm a little bit too ambitious. I want to be a Premier League manager yesterday. But, speaking to yourself and the directors, the club's going in the right direction. And I believe as soon as the announcements were made by Robbie, this was the job that I wanted. And I had some really good offers, financially, which brings security to my family and other clubs that are, higher up in the pyramid. But for me, this job, I remember my wife saying, it's the job you want, isn't it? And I said, yeah, it is. It's the job I want. And I was turned down other clubs. At this time you had 100 applicants. So it was never going to be, easy for me to get the job. But I'm really glad. I'm really proud because this is a big, big football club and it's got big potential.
Yeah. You said you're sometimes too ambitious. You can never be too ambitious, but you have got to remember to enjoy the journey. And all that. That's the thing. That's the key thing for me. What's going to be your immediate focus when you're settling in? Obviously, we've got a couple of months before you start. You start on May the 19th, the first day after the playoff final.
Yeah.
You've got that period between them. What are you going to be focused on then? And then when you start officially, what will be the big focus from there?
The good thing for me is it gives me time to plan, because last season I learned a lot in terms of going from the National South, going into the National League. Yes, it's one step, but it's actually 5 or 6 steps. It's a really big change. And going from that sort of part-time Tuesday, Thursdays, where everything rushed, and then you've got time on your hands and you've got, all the analysis that comes with it. So for me, it's about seeing what's happening at the club right now. I want to spend the next sort of month seeing how everything is within the club, working with yourself and the staff at Chelmsford and looking to do little improvements, not come in and throw a grenade and say, right, everyone's out and we bring loads of new people in. Chelmsford have done well before Angelo Harrop. So for me, it's about just small steps, but going in the right direction. I want to meet the players. I want to meet the staff, find out what's been good and what could be improved. And then, put my stamp on the club. Trying to bring that, not that there's not excitement now, but with me, as you could see the way I'm speaking, I'm really passionate about driving this club forward. So small steps, but just keep developing the club.
So obviously you managed Braintree before this, our big rivals. We won't dwell on that too long. But, what did you learn there that will help Chelmsford?
I think recruitment is the biggest thing I've learned. And I think it's the number one factor of being a good manager. You've got to recruit right. Ultimately the players you bring in, they're going to be looking to get you the 3 points. And once they step over that white line, especially with the crowds getting bigger like they are, the players have got to do their job. But when you start dealing with contracts and, you try, I think 2 seasons ago when I was at Braintree, a lot of players came in, a lot of players gone out, and I could make decisions and maybe let players go and bring in better. But especially this season, when you're on the contracts, it's not as easy as that.
Yeah.
So I started to learn about contracts and negotiations and agents and not panicking and getting players in because we need a new striker and then you panic and make mistakes. So for me, the biggest thing I've learned is recruitment. Make sure I get that right. And the big appeal for me is the next 2-3 months I've got time, so I can go and watch the players, because when you're in a job, you don't have time. There's always the next game and training and everyone wants your attention. So for me now, my phone hasn't been ringing as much as it was. I can just spend time watching and looking at players for the football club.
I was talking to Robbie about this on Saturday, and he said it's actually a really unique but very good position that we're in, that he can focus on the games and you can be looking at other players and the oppositions and
100%.
all of that sort of stuff. So it gives you a nice transition into it.
Yeah, it's a very different situation because, usually your manager will resign or get the sack, and then you just get another manager in. So it's a unique position. I think it's all happened for a reason. So, like I say, Robbie's done an amazing job at the football club, been here a long time. I've got a good relationship with him, so I'll be able to really work now with Robbie, and hopefully we have a great finish to the season. But we look at players for next season as well.
Yeah. And so, what's the hardest thing about being a football manager that maybe the fans don't see on a week in, week out basis?
I think it's the sacrifice to your family more. Especially, I've always been someone that demands so much of myself, which is probably unfair. I don't need to be that demanding. I don't know, maybe that's come from the way my dad was with me, but when we win, it's more of a relief, and right,
Yeah.
how can I can't win the next game? And when we lose, I really struggle. That's something I need to improve on, because you are going to lose games, and it's about trying to keep your calm and your control, and you've got to always bring that excitement and motivation for your players. So it's really difficult because I'm so passionate, and you'll see that on a touchline. And then you look at managers like McKenna, really nice and controlled. Obviously, we're both Liverpool fans, so we see the way Klopp is, and he's a different part of the spectrum. He's so desperate to win every game and passionate. But I think fans like that. I think the new modern way of managing, they like to see their manager as passionate as the fans, and that's what they'll definitely get with me.
I was talking to Paul Barber, who's the CEO at Brighton.
Yeah.
And the phrase he uses is cutting out the noise from the signal.
Yeah.
And it's you've got a goal for the season. You want to get X amount of points and finish in X position. You're going to lose games that you expect to win, and you're going to win games you think you might lose.
Yeah.
But as long as you're on track, it's trying to keep that balance for you, not to get too high when you win, not to get too low when you lose. And I'm trying to adapt that. But yeah, Saturday when Worthing scored a last-minute winner, I threw my bottle against the wall. It's so hard to control that. But I think I'm quite good now, at almost straight away, just thinking, right, what's the long-term picture here?
Yeah.
What are we doing long-term? Are we on track long-term? Okay, we slipped up, but it's taken a longer-term view on it than a 90-minute game. But
yeah, I think a lot of experienced managers have told me that never get too high, never get too low. But it's something in me. It's really difficult to change that. Even when I watch my team Liverpool on the TV, I'm so excitable when they're winning games. So I don't want to change too much, because ultimately I've had quite a rise over the last sort of 5 years. So I don't want to change too much, but I'm always adaptable. I think. I listen to a lot of podcasts, a lot of managers speaking after their interviews, and I'd like to think that my charisma and my passion, ultimately it goes into my teams, and the teams that I've managed have always been really hard working and a passionate side.
Yeah, I mean, you've only got to look at Slot. He's been the most calm and collected manager all season, then gets sent off against Everton.
Yeah, well, the pressure's coming now, isn't it? So.
And what's one thing, finally, that you'd like Chelmsford City fans to know about you as a manager?
I'd just like them to. I'm always honest. They'll always get feedback from me. Like I say, win, lose or draw, I'll always do an interview. Yes, I'll ask my staff to. Usually, ask my staff to do interviews when we win. So I think that's a lot easier. But I'm always willing to speak to all the fans. Not all at the same time. But yeah, I always give them time, and I'd like to think. I always say I'm the hardest working manager. I'll live and breathe this football club now, and give it my best shot. And I think as long as they see a manager that really puts everything into it, I think they'll be happy. I can't promise we'll win every game, but what I can promise is that you'll have a manager that will work extremely hard to bring success to the club.
Brilliant. Great stuff. Welcome to the club.
Thank you,
Looking
Spencer.
forward to it.
Thank you.